The city of Jerusalem, cradle of three world religions, had always been a living testament to human history, brimming with stories of kings, prophets, and battles. But during the quiet hours of the night, a different Jerusalem emerged. A ghostly one wrapped in tales older than its cobbled streets. Ile drove through this phantom city, the hum of his car's engine juxtaposing the eerie stillness. The streets, which bustled with life during the day, were now empty, silent, but for the distant echoes of past lives. They seemed to whisper secrets of olden times and mysteries, not of this world. He maneuvered his car under the dimly lit old-fashioned streetlights, which cast long, haunting shadows that danced with the tendrils of mist weaving through the streets. Each lamppost, with its amber glow, looked more like a sentinel, guarding the memories of the ancient city than a source of light. The spectral presence of the long-abandoned Hadassah Hospital loomed in the distance, a remnant from a bygone era, yet a constant in Eyal's nightly sojourns. The edifice stood tall, with broken windows like hollow eyes, overlooking the modern city with a gaze filled with tales of yesteryears. A cool mist, reminiscent of forgotten sighs, enveloped the city. It wound its way around the stone structures and cypress trees, making every shadow stretch longer, every echo seem louder. It was as if the heavens were breathing out the stories of souls long gone, and the earth was inhaling them, preserving them in its bosom. Ile checked the clock on his dashboard. 3:02 a.m. That silent expectancy hung in the air, a brief pause before an event he had come to anticipate with a mix of trepidation and intrigue. The digital numbers seemed out of place in this ancient setting, yet they heralded the arrival of Lucy's inevitable request. The juxtaposition was jarring, old and new, tangible and ethereal, real and imagined. The weight of the atmosphere pressed on him. Here in the midst of the modern world, the past refused to remain buried. In the ghostly streets of Jerusalem, at the brink of 3:03 a.m., history and mystery were about to intertwine once again. As the silence wrapped around the city, Ile's thoughts turned inwards. His deep-set eyes, reflecting the haunting hues of the streets, darted every now and then to his phone, waiting for that familiar name to pop up on his ride request. Lucy. To many, Ile was just another face in the crowd, a quiet, introverted rideshare driver who preferred the solitude of nighttime. But behind the wheel, with the hum of the engine as his companion, he was a man on a personal quest. Ile's past was rooted in the very soil he drove on. A former student of archaeology, he had once dreamed of unearthing Jerusalem's buried stories. His youthful enthusiasm was fueled by tales of ancient civilizations, hidden treasures, and long-lost relics. But as years went by, his life took an unexpected detour. The sudden loss of his younger sister, a wound that never quite healed, cast a shadow over his aspirations. Memories of their shared laughter and innocent escapades turned into painful reminders of what was lost. Driving through the night became Ile's therapy. The city, with its interwoven tales of the past, allowed him to escape his own memories, if only momentarily. The ancient walls seemed to listen to his silent grief, offering solace in their steadfastness. Yet there was one mystery he couldn't escape. Every night, like clockwork, a ride request from Lucy appeared on his app. No matter where he was in the city, no matter the route he took, Lucy's name would shine on his screen at exactly 3:03 a.m. Who was this enigmatic passenger? Why did she only request rides at this unearthly hour? Skeptical by nature, Ile had always sought logical explanations. His academic background taught him to rely on facts and evidence. However, his slightly superstitious upbringing whispered tales of spirits and apparitions. Could Lucy be a soul from the past trying to communicate through the digital realm? Or was she just another insomniac in a city that never truly slept? Tonight, Ile felt an inexplicable pull. He decided he would unravel the enigma of Lucy. It wasn't just about the ride request anymore. It was a challenge to his skepticism, a tug at his buried instincts of exploration. He glanced at the time once more. 3:02 a.m. The silent expectancy grew. A moment stretched out, thick with anticipation, and as the seconds ticked away, drawing closer to that fateful minute, Ile braced himself for the uncanny, for the intertwining of the past and present, the known and the unknown. The story of Lucy was about to unfold, and Isle was at its very epicenter. The weight of the impending mystery made Isle's hands jittery. In an attempt to gather himself, he reached out to the car's glove box, searching for a small notebook he kept for stray thoughts. Amidst the jumble of papers, old receipts and various trinkets, his fingers grazed an unexpected texture. He drew out a yellowed newspaper clipping, folded and softened with age. Curiosity piqued, Isle unfurled the clipping to see an old black and white photograph. It depicted the front of the Hadassah Hospital, the very structure he had often passed in his nightly drives, now standing as a silent sentinel to forgotten tales. But what arrested his attention was the headline, "Mysterious Disappearance, Young Lucy Vanishes Near Hadassah." The story, dated several decades back, chronicled the strange disappearance of a girl named Lucy. She had last been seen near the hospital, and despite exhaustive searches and citywide efforts, no trace of her was ever found. The article went on to describe Lucy, a vibrant girl with a penchant for exploration, known for her unmistakable white dress that she wore, rain or shine. A cold realization washed over Isle. Could this be the same Lucy, the one who had become a phantom in his digital world? The coincidence seemed too pointed to be dismissed. Rattled yet resolute, Isle decided that tonight was the night he'd get answers. He had packed a recorder and a vintage camera earlier, hoping to capture any unusual occurrences. They now felt prophetic. With the recorder on standby and the camera hanging around his neck, he prepared himself to confront whatever or whoever awaited him. Time seemed to crawl, each second was thick with tension. But soon, as expected, the notification sounded. Lucy's ride request flashed on his screen. Isle accepted, feeling the weight of history, hope and fear pressing on his shoulders. A destination was set, pointing towards the shadowy realms of the old Hadassah Hospital. Before igniting the engine, Isle took a deep breath. The faded newspaper article clutched in his hand seemed to pulse with life, connecting him to a story lost in the annals of time. He was no longer just a rideshare driver. He was a man on the verge of unveiling a narrative that spanned decades. As he drove, the very streets whispered secrets, and the city's spectral ambience seemed more pronounced than ever. With every turn, Isle felt he wasn't just journeying through the streets of Jerusalem, but also traveling back in time. The recorder's red light blinked, capturing every sound, every murmur. The camera, although old, was ready to snapshot the ethereal. Isle, with a mix of determination and trepidation, was about to meet Lucy not just as a name on his screen, but as a chapter from Jerusalem's haunted past. The narrow streets of Jerusalem seemed to narrow further, the shadows stretching and contracting as if the city itself breathed. Isle's car maneuvered through the labyrinthine alleys, guided only by the faint illumination of the old-fashioned streetlights and the blinking dot on his rideshare app. Each turn seemed more desolate than the last, and a chilling mist began to roll in, the cool tendrils brushing against the windshield and obscuring the path ahead. 3:03 a.m. Precisely. On cue. A soft ping resonated in the confines of the car, and Isle's heart rate quickened. The notification on the screen read, "Lucy, pickup from Hadassah Hospital." He exhaled deeply, fingers gripping the wheel tighter. His previous journeys at this unearthly hour, always leading to the same mysterious destination, had imbued in him a mix of dread and determination. But tonight was different. Tonight, he was armed with knowledge of a story long buried, a story waiting to be told. Isle arrived at the entrance of the long-abandoned Hadassah Hospital, its silhouette dark and imposing against the backdrop of the starless sky. He parked the car by the wrought-iron gates, now rusty and slightly ajar. The once grand structure loomed like a haunted relic of the past, its windows hollow eyes staring back at him. He waited in bated breath, eyes darting to and fro, seeking out the familiar figure in white. Minutes felt like hours. But there was no sign of Lucy. No shadowy figure, no rustling of fabric, just the deep silence of the night interrupted occasionally by the distant echoes of the city. Feeling a pang of disappointment and concern, Isle glanced at his recorder, which he had placed on the dashboard. The little red light blinked rhythmically, assuring him of its active status. He was about to check the app again when a soft static emanated from the recorder. Straining his ears, he could discern a faint, ethereal voice amidst the interference. It whispered, chilling him to the bone.
"Wait for me."
Isle froze, every fiber of his being attuned to the voice. It sounded distant yet close, like a breeze carrying a secret. The voice, though barely audible, bore a profound sadness, echoing the weight of years and untold stories. Could this be Lucy? He pondered, his skepticism now battling with the irrefutable evidence. Gathering his wits, he decided to step out of the car, the camera slung around his neck. The mist had thickened, cloaking the hospital in a shroud of mystery. But as Eyal ventured further into the premises, the anticipation of the impending encounter propelled him forward. This was the catalyst, the turning point in Eyal's nightly journeys. The whispered plea was not just a voice from the beyond, it was an invitation, a beckoning to uncover the truth that lay veiled in the annals of Jerusalem's history. Eyal was no longer just an observer. He was now an active participant in Lucy's spectral narrative. The boundary between the living and the dead, the tangible and the intangible, had just been blurred. The interior of the hospital was an echoing chamber of long-held secrets. As Eyal hesitantly stepped through the main entrance, the thick air smelled of age, of rusted metal, and of memories long entombed. He couldn't help but be reminded of the many archaeological sites he had visited as a student, where every artifact bore the weight of history. The beam from his flashlight cut through the gloom, casting eerie patterns upon the cracked tiles and peeling walls. Faint murmurs reached his ears, a mixture of the wind rustling against the broken windows and perhaps the soft cries of souls who once inhabited these corridors. A flash of white at the corner of his vision drew his attention. He spun around, attempting to pinpoint its origin. Eyal caught a fleeting glimpse of what seemed to be the hem of a white dress disappearing behind a turn. The soft, ghostly whispers he'd heard earlier returned, guiding him in his chase.
"This way."
They seemed to beckon. He followed the ethereal prompts, each corner revealing yet another darkened hallway. Every so often he'd spot that elusive figure in white, always just out of reach, drawing him further into the maze-like bowels of the hospital. His rapid footsteps contrasted starkly with the hushed environment, echoing off the walls, emphasizing the urgency of his pursuit. The whispers, while guiding him, also seemed to resonate with a sense of pain and longing. Eyal eventually found himself at the entrance of a long-forgotten ward. The once sterile white of the walls was now marred by time, and rusted bed frames were haphazardly scattered about. At the far end, a wooden table lay covered in a thick layer of dust, upon which rested various personal belongings, relics of the patients who once called this place home. Curiosity piqued, Eyal approached and began examining the artifacts. Amongst old spectacles, a dilapidated teddy bear and letters yellowed with age, a leather-bound photo album caught his eye. He carefully opened it, revealing black and white photographs of patients, nurses, and doctors. Their expressions ranged from hope to desolation, a poignant reflection of the institution's history. He flipped through the pages until a particular photo made his heart skip a beat. It showcased a young woman in her early 20s with dark hair, wearing a simple white dress. Her eyes, though frozen in grayscale, seemed to hold depths of stories untold. The resemblance was uncanny. It was Lucy. Below the photo in elegant handwriting was inscribed,
"Lucy, 1947. May her soul find the peace she sought in life."
Stunned, Eyal clutched the album close. The implications were both fascinating and terrifying. The walls of the ward seemed to close in on him, each shadow a witness to Lucy's story. The chase had transformed into a discovery that tied the past to the present and the living to the departed. The soft whispers intensified, now echoing Lucy's name in a haunting refrain. Eyal felt an overwhelming urge to uncover more, to delve deeper into the narrative that fate had thrown him into. His quest was no longer about mere curiosity. It was about unraveling the bonds of time and memory. The atmosphere grew thick, charged with an electric energy that Eyal could sense tingling on the nape of his neck. The room seemed to darken even further, the past and present merging until they were indistinguishable. From the shadowed depths of the corridor, a soft glow emerged, accompanied by the ethereal whispering that Isle had become all too familiar with. As the luminosity approached, it shaped into the delicate form of Lucy, her spectral figure bathed in a gentle, otherworldly light. Their eyes locked, and a silence deeper than the ages settled around them. Isle, swallowed by an overwhelming mix of awe and fear, finally found his voice.
Lucy.
She blinked, her expression one of surprise and gentle recognition.
You can see me? Most cannot.
He nodded slowly, taking in the ethereal presence before him.
I've been trying to find you. Why do you call for a ride every night?
She looked forlorn, her gaze distant.
I need to visit my sister. She's all alone, resting near the old olive tree. I can't bear the thought of her being by herself.
Isle felt a pang in his heart.
Lucy, do you know that you're not among the living?
She frowned, her translucent brows knitting in confusion.
What do you mean? I remember the illness, the pain, and then waking up here, needing to see my sister. I've been trying to reach her ever since.
Isle hesitated, a realization dawning upon him.
What's your sister's name?
Miriam, Lucy replied softly, her voice filled with love and sorrow. A chill raced down Isle's spine. Miriam was the name of his younger sister, the one he had lost during his childhood. The memories, suppressed for so long, came flooding back. Whispered conversations by adults, hushed tales of another daughter, one who had lived before his time, who had been lost to an illness, leaving behind her devastated younger sibling.
You're my sister, the elder sister my parents never spoke of.
Isle whispered, both astounded and devastated. Lucy's eyes widened with realization. The ethereal glow around her seemed to shimmer with a new intensity.
Your Isle.
She floated closer, a spectral hand reaching out to touch his face, her touch as cold as the midnight breeze. Isle nodded, tears forming in his eyes.
Yes, Lucy. I'm your brother. And Miriam. She was our sister. I've mourned her my entire life.
A profound sadness washed over Lucy's features.
Then all this time, I've been trapped between worlds, trying to comfort a sister who had already joined me.
Isle took a deep breath, the weight of the revelation heavy upon him.
Lucy, we need to set things right. For both of you.
She nodded, her gaze filled with determination.
Let's go to Miriam. Let's find the peace that has eluded us for so long.
As they exited the hospital, the city seemed to acknowledge the gravity of their reunion. The wind whispered secrets of times gone by, and the distant echoes of past lives seemed to converge in a symphony of memories and love. The connection between the siblings, separated by time and existence, would be the key to unraveling the mysteries that bound them. The vehicle's engine hummed softly as Isle drove through the winding streets of Jerusalem. The desolate road ahead seemed to stretch on endlessly, accompanied only by the haunting murmur of ancient prayers echoing through the night. Lucy sat beside him, her form flickering like a candle flame in the breeze. Despite her intangibility, her presence was palpable, the air thick with emotions and memories that spanned lifetimes.
The cemetery is near,
she whispered, her voice as soft as the wind rustling the leaves.
I can feel Miriam.
Isle nodded, his eyes focused on the road. The weight of the night's discoveries pressed heavily on his heart. As they neared the cemetery, the moon emerged from behind a veil of clouds, casting an ethereal glow over the tombstones. The place seemed alive, not with the presence of the living, but with the memories of those long gone. Parking the car near an old olive tree, the siblings made their way to a tombstone, slightly worn by time, but clearly marked with the name Miriam. The air grew cold, and the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Lucy's form shimmered even more intensely, reflecting the moon's light.
She was so young.
Lucy whispered, her voice breaking.
I never got to say goodbye.
Isle placed a comforting hand on the tombstone.
She knew you loved her. And now, she knows you're here.
Suddenly, a gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh lilies. From the corner of his eye, Isle saw another ethereal figure emerging, a younger girl, her face mirroring Lucy's, but filled with joy. Miriam. The two spectral sisters approached each other, their forms intertwining in a dance of light and shadow. Their reunion, long overdue, was a sight both beautiful and heart-wrenching. Isle watched, tears streaming down his face, as the past melded with the present. After what felt like an eternity, Lucy turned her attention to a nearby pond. The still water reflected the moon and stars, but as she gazed into it, another reflection emerged, her own, as she was in life. Her vibrant eyes, her youthful face, the life that was cut short.
I see it now.
She murmured, realization dawning in her eyes.
I've been trapped in between, not wanting to let go, not wanting to accept the truth.
Ael approached her, his voice gentle.
You can find peace now, Lucy. Both of you can.
Lucy nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude.
Thank you, Isle. Thank you for helping me remember, for helping us find each other.
The cemetery, once silent, now resonated with the whispers of memories, stories, and farewells. As Lucy and Miriam's forms began to fade, they left behind a feeling of serenity, a testament to the enduring power of love and family. In the quiet aftermath, with the moon as his sole witness, Isle whispered a final goodbye, a promise to remember, and a vow to cherish the memories of two sisters who had finally found their way home. The first light of dawn began to paint the horizon with shades of lavender and gold. Isle stood still for a moment longer, feeling an overwhelming sense of serenity. The weight that had pressed on his heart for years felt lighter, as if the specters of the past had lifted their burdens, some hands from his soul. He made his way back to the car, the gravel beneath his feet crunching softly. Starting the engine, he took one last glance at the tombstone, a silent promise to always remember. As he drove through the awakening streets of Jerusalem, the city seemed to echo with a newfound vibrancy, each stone and pathway shimmering with stories of the past and the hope of new beginnings. Upon reaching his apartment, Isle decided to review the night's recordings, a testament to the ethereal journey he had undertaken. He took out his recorder, pressing play and expecting to hear Lucy's haunting whispers, but instead, he was met with silence. The only sound was the distant hum of the city and his own heartbeat. Confused, he checked his vintage camera, hoping to see the ghostly imprints of his late-night adventure. But as he scrolled through the photos, there was no trace of Lucy or the long-forgotten hospital ward. The images showed only empty corridors, silent streets, and a solitary figure, himself. Feeling a mix of astonishment and disbelief, Ael pulled out his phone to check the Rideshare app. Perhaps there would be a trace of the mysterious Lucy, a digital footprint of their shared experience. But as he navigated to the ride history, her name was conspicuously absent. No record of a pickup at 3:03 a.m., no destination to the cemetery. As if the entire night had been a dream. He leaned back, allowing the reality of the situation to sink in. Whether it was a spectral encounter or a journey of the soul, the truth remained. He had been granted a rare chance to find closure, to bridge the chasm of grief that had separated him from his family's history. Days turned into weeks, and Isle found himself driving through the streets of Jerusalem with renewed purpose. The nighttime journeys were no longer an escape from his past, but a celebration of memories and a promise of hope. The spectral requests from Lucy ceased entirely, but her presence lingered in the soft whispers of the wind and the gentle glow of streetlights. One evening, as he parked his car near the old Hadassah hospital, Ael found a faded photograph tucked beneath his windshield wiper. It was an image of two young girls, their faces mirroring joy and innocence. On the back, in delicate handwriting, were the words,
Thank you for reuniting us. Forever in your debt. Lucy, and Miriam.
With a smile, Isle pocketed the photograph, a tangible reminder of an intangible experience. The city around him, steeped in history and mystery, continued its timeless dance. But for Isle, the journey had come full circle. In the labyrinth of memories and ghosts, he had found a way home.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Quantum Dispatches and stay tuned next week for another thrilling adventure. Thank you for listening.